Okay, we seem to have a problem with the connection with Robert Wanyonyi, but we'll definitely be joining him later on in the bulletin for an update after the body of the slain businessman Jacob Juma has just arrived in Kakamega. Robert will be joining us with more details on the same. But moving on, the national government has pledged to follow through with its promise to demolish all buildings within Nairobi that have not met the legal standards for occupation once a 7-day notice extension lapses tomorrow. The Director of Administration at the State Department of Public Works says the Huruma building collapse was a major wake-up call for the country and that contractors found to flout the law will not be spared.
Historically, over many years, illegal buildings have come up, particularly in the peripheries of this city and even in other cities in Kenya. And we are now working together with the county governments to build capacity. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we had a capacity building program through our National Building Inspectorate for all county staff concerned with works affairs on how to do audits of buildings. So we are doing a concerted effort, but I want to underline that it is still the onus of every county government to take stock of the buildings and infrastructure within their respective jurisdictions. We do respect every instruction and order and advice that has also been given by the governor on humanitarian grounds to enable people to be able to reposition themselves. The government has also, through the Ministry of Devolution, made some facilitation to enable even some of the affected to be able to go and pay rent elsewhere and to be able just to move them. So I think all organs of government are working jointly on this.
Well, that there is the Director of Administration at the State Department of Public Works. Our reporter, Timothy Otieno, attended that press briefing. He is now about to join us from the city center studio. Of course, this comes a week or so after the building collapsed in Huruma that left 51 people dead. 140 were rescued, and a rescue and search operation had been conducted in the area for a whole week, raising questions on how well or how good is the workmanship on Kenyan buildings. Let us now link up with our reporter Timothy Otieno, who is joining us from the city center for more details on the same. Thank you very much for joining us, Timothy. How many buildings are we expecting to be demolished?
That number has not yet been determined. Of course, the State Department of Public Works saying that this will not be an operation that will be conducted by one agency. It's a multi-agency operation that will involve members of the national government as well as members of the county government of Nairobi. But if the permanent secretary's comments earlier on this week, Mr. Paul Mwangi, are anything to go by, then that number could be 228 buildings within Nairobi city that are expected to go down once that extended grace period lapses tomorrow, Akisa. But of course, this morning, the State Department holding a special meeting with members of the construction industry in the country, and particularly contractors for that matter, over two reasons. One of them was, of course, for over delayed payments of their dues that amounts to 52 million shillings that have been backdated all the way to February this year. But of course, the other one was what we have just been talking about and what has made headlines throughout most of the last few weeks, and is the issue of the safety of our buildings, this following the Huruma tragedy, where unfortunately more than 50 lives were lost. And the ministry, of course, saying that the collapse indeed was a wake-up call, and they are going to be taking action against those contractors who flout the rules and regulations in regards to building safety. Remember, these 228 buildings that have been earmarked for demolition are after a directive by the cabinet secretary for lands and housing, Professor Jacob Kaimenyi, to conduct a thorough audit on the building 2,601 buildings were audited, most of them around the Eastlands area of Dagoretti, Kayole, Babadogo, and Zimmerman, and the 228 may be going. Of course, this is yet still an unofficial number. These are figures that were issued by the ministry earlier on this week. A comprehensive figure will be given out later on after the two agencies indeed do meet Akisa. But of course, this is a matter that is really dear to the heart of those concerned and stakeholders. Of course, this is mainly because lives are indeed being lost and
now,
being
Timothy,
lost at a very fast rate, Akisa.
Timothy, this is not the first time we've had the government promise to demolish houses that are not up to standard. And of course, it is not also the first time we've seen a building collapsed. Are we assured that this time this will happen?
Well, I posed that exact question to the Director of Administration, Mr. George Mugoe, and he was saying that the issue really is because the government really, and most of the time, really comes just to deal with the aftermath of an incident. And he pointed out the issue of compliance as being one of the major hurdles that both the national and county government has to face in regards to finally putting a rest to this matter. As you have said, it's not the first time. And of course, he pointed out that indeed on the part of the government, there is goodwill. There is the National Building Inspectorate Unit that has been established. There is the National Construction Authority that is just about 2.5 years old. And these institutions have been tasked with coming up with legislation and ensuring that rules are indeed followed. But their issue was compliance was the major issue, and that's why they were holding this meeting with the contractors earlier on this morning to find a way in which they can finally bring this to rest, because they're saying that the compliance part is what actually is bringing a lot of the teething problems in regards to taming that particular sector, Akisa.
All right, thank you very much, Timothy. There is our reporter Timothy Otieno, just giving us an update on the state of buildings in the country and those that are expected to be demolished starting tomorrow. Let us now take a short break. Don't go too far. We still have a lot lined up for you on KTN News Desk.
Now, thank you so much for joining us for this special coverage of the 26th edition of the World Economic Forum taking place right here in Rwanda for the very first time, but of course the second in Africa. I'm now joined in the studio right here by none other than the CEO of BRD Commercial, part of Atlas Mara, Konde Bugingo. Thank you so much for joining us on set. Very quickly, it is important to understand the place of technology in the banking sector, because there are those who are already saying that the banking sector is at a very tough time, of course a crossroad, because there are those who are saying that if the banking sector does not adapt to the current changes that are taking place in terms of technology and being innovative, then they are bound to be overtaken by other financial service operators. What is your quick thought on that? Do you agree with that? Do you feel that this is not the correct perception?
I think banking has gone through an evolution, and digital programs or digital evolution of what we've been doing, whether in banking, in telco, or any other industry, is the way forward. There is no question that it's not only going to affect banking, but it's going to affect across all sectors. Even today, if you consider that Rwanda will be one of the only countries you can actually deliver medical services using a drone, that's digital for you. So when it comes to banking, it's so important, even more than any other industry. Banking is about creating products and services efficiently and less risky. And there's no better way to do that by using digital. And the second thing is banking is also about accessing finance from our clients and potential clients through deposits for mobilizing savings that we lend out. And also, banking is facilitating those transactions easier, efficiently, effectively, and controlled. So nothing comes better than digitalization to ensure that those things happen. So partnering with digital partners is very important. Be it telcos, payment schemes, payment companies, it is so important that you are in the fintech space. And I'm proud to sit here and say, even today when we launched our application, basically our bank app is to ensure that we are entering that space with very strong vigor, firm, and we're able to deliver for our clients. Going digital is the way forward.
Right. Now, talking about the issue of the competition, as far as other financing institutions or applications or other platforms are concerned, we understand that the mobile banking business had sort of, poked holes on the traditional way of how banks were operating. Today, we see a lot of partnerships with, mobile banking services and applications being created along the same line. Could this be a proof of that statement of, if you cannot beat them, join them?
I think in whatever industry you're in, competition is always going to be there. But also, if you are standing out and if you are cut out for that industry and you're prepared, then you will not have to do that choice. You will not have to make a choice between whether it's join them or leave it, or it comes down to preparedness. It comes down to understanding the industry. I believe that if you're prepared enough and you've been evolving with the times, you will know exactly where you're heading. If you're headed the direction where you're copying everybody else, then your returns will remain stable. Your returns will remain plateau. There will be no change, no spikes. But probably over time, your returns start to go down because you definitely will lose clients, definitely will lose that momentum in terms of creating transactions. You will lose so many elements within the business, as well as the fact that you then start losing even the transactional fees and commissions within the banking sector, let me say. Or if you go into telco, it's the same thing. So it is important that you evolve with it. You're dynamic enough and evolving with the trend of mobile banking, but becoming even more innovative to go further. I think in the coming few months and years ahead, you're going to see a different BPR that has, that is bringing innovative products on the market that is nowhere near copying what it is in the market. If you recall, 6 years ago, I was sitting in the same stage, launching BPR's mobile banking on a feature phone, not a smartphone. Now, we have now evolved. It's taken a bit longer, but we've evolved. We're rebranding today, as well as showing that modern digital services that we had started. The first time in Rwanda was launched by BPR 6 years ago. And now we're launching today the first of its kind in Rwanda again, a mobile app that will serve that market. Now, it shows that we're evolving. So in that industry, and as you put your question, you have to evolve with the market. Otherwise, you're left.
Of Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Nkaseri and Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet to provide the family with mobile phone data and CCTV footage of Juma's car tracked to Ngong Road on the fateful night. Juma's body has already arrived in Kakamega for viewing ahead of his burial tomorrow in his rural home in Mungore Village, Bungoma County. Let us now join our reporter Robert Wanyonyi, who is in Kakamega, for an update on the same. Thank you very much for joining us, Robert. We understand that the body has already arrived. Kindly give us details on who was there to receive it and the next order of business.
Thank you very much, Akisa. Good afternoon. The body has just landed at Masinde Muliro University. About 2 helicopters, one was carrying the body and another one was carrying the family members, before proceeding to Kakamega approved primary school, where the public viewing is now ongoing. And at hand to receive the body was Kakamega Senator Dr. Boni Halwala and a few civic leaders from this area. After here, it is now expected that the body will be taken to Bungoma Poster Grounds, where there is another public viewing scheduled there, before going to Mungore for a mass in the evening and then home at Mungore village.
Now, Robert, with the public viewing and the body just getting into Western, what is the general mood?
Jack died. Up to today, I've not seen any police.
But initially there was some views, and especially on some social media pages, where some people are arguing. There was arguments between Jubilee and court supporters over the manner in which the body will be laid to rest, with others saying there will be some traditional functions being performed, but with the family clarifying that there will be a church service, being an Anglican church that will be in charge. I think now the tension has gone down a bit. And in a few minutes ago, so the County Commissioner for Bungoma, Mr. Mali Mohammed, has just held a press conference whereby after strategizing with his security team, he has said that there will be enough security on the ground and there is no cause for alarm.
All right, and so what do we expect tomorrow as well, as he will be buried in Bungoma County?
Kisa, the situation is that we expect a lot of heat, especially on the political scene, because the Jubilee counterparts from Western and those their colleagues from CORD are also expected to attend the burial. And we know that considering the events that have preceded the death, and also what has been going on up to this moment, is that there has been a lot of talk regarding his man of death. So we expect some heat, the political heat, to go up in Bungoma at Mungore village tomorrow, with CORD leaders expected to take it up with their Jubilee counterparts who, according to what is being read, there are some views that fingers are being pointed there maybe, but we can't go into that. But we expect the burial to be politically charged.
All right, thank you very much, Robert, for joining us. Robert Wanyonyi there, our reporter joining us from Kakamega, where the body of slain businessman Jacob Juma has just landed, and there will be a public viewing at the Kakamega approved school ahead of his burial tomorrow in his Mungore home in Bungoma County. Now, the government wants to relocate all refugees from the country. Let's listen into the directive by Cabinet Secretary Joseph Nkaiseri made on Wednesday this week.
Has been made by government reflecting the fact that the camps have become hosting ground for Al-Shabaab, as well as centers of smuggling and contraband trade, beside being enablers of illicit weapon proliferation. There comes a time when we must think primarily about the security of our people. Ladies and gentlemen, that time is now.
Right, that directive from Cabinet Secretary for Interior, Joseph Nkaiseri, has caused a lot of reaction from different quarters, many supporting the move for Kenya to close down its refugee camps, and with some having reservations on why the country should not turn its back on refugees. And joining me now in studio is Dahir Duale, who is the Member of Parliament for Dadaab, just to get his reaction on this current situation in the country. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Duale. Of course, I will start with, what is your stand with Kenya closing its doors on refugees?
Yes, Wandera, I think we have no problem for the refugees to go back to their home. But we have an issue on the statements which are issued by the government and the timing of these issues. One, because we have had the tripartite agreement between the government of Kenya, Somalia, and the UNHCR, and that agreement had clear terms of reference. I feel that the government feels it was slow, but what we are also saying is that it was important for that tripartite agreement to be reviewed with the other stakeholders, the government of Somalia and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. For as far as we know now, that has not taken place, and we are wondering why the government has ignored the international humanitarian agencies who are actually taking care of the refugees, and the government of Somalia, which is supposed to be the partner to receive the refugees.
Well, some of the reasons that the government gave is that even with the tripartite agreement in place, is the international community has been so slow to act, even blaming it for laxity when it comes to taking care of the refugees. And at the end of the day, Kenya bears the brand of taking care of refugees. Don't you think this is a good reason for Kenya to close its doors?
Yes, Wandera, I think what I will say first of all is that for Kenya, I think we have done a good job to host the refugees for the last 25 years. And that good job has benefited millions of refugees, some of them who are here, some of them who have left this country. Now, what we are saying is that we should not convert that goodwill from both the refugees and the government of Somalia and the international community to an event that will be adverse for this country. And our concern as residents of Dadaab, where I represent, we do know that there are issues of concern but also there are also many things good that has been done by the international community and the refugees. For example, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees has been supporting the government of Kenya in terms of supporting the security system through the Security Partnership Program. It has also been working closely with the government of Kenya through the Department of Refugee Affairs. Now, the disbandment of DRA technically means that the government of Kenya has delinked itself from the humanitarian agencies, and this is a worrisome issue.
Do you think that we are raising legit concerns with security being topmost of the government's concern right now?
Yes, I think that there could be some legitimate concerns, but not to the extent it is said, because all the incidents of insecurity that has taken place, for example, the bus incident in Mandera, the 2 bus incidents, we are not sure whether there is any evidence to link them with the refugees. The incident of Garissa, one of them is a well-known Kenyan who was a lawyer. We know that also other people who claim responsibility were people from Garissa County who are in Somalia. And we know that even the other identity of the other people have not been given. The Westgate issue, the information that we have so far is that those people were foreigners who came from Europe. So somehow we don't feel really that there is a strong legitimate reason to link insecurity.
So
what I want to say is that the United Nations High Commission for Refugees currently supports the government in terms of security. There are more than 100 vehicles which were bought, maintained and fueled by the United Nations. We also have installations that were supported for administration police, regular police and other forms of government. And the crime rate in that area is very low. Okay. So what we really wanted is that the government to be very clear what are the, in fact, our feeling is that the action by the government, if implemented, can actually bring a more serious security problem, because we have over 100,000 youths who are in those camps, and you want to move them without a proper arrangement, and those people can easily become recruited into the Al-Shabaab network, and they can easily come back to our country.
Back to your earlier statement that you don't really believe the government has legitimate reasons. Does this mean that you do not support the government's sentiments that the refugee camps have become a den of criminals, especially terrorists in this country?
And that's what...
Do you support those sentiments by the Interior Cabinet Secretary?
We need to be given more evidence, because we are not seeing that kind of information currently. In the public domain, we are not seeing that information. Perhaps the intelligence will have something, but in the context of the public domain, we are not seeing such kind of information.
Do you think refugee camps pose a huge security threat to the country as of now?
As of now, I don't think so. I don't think right now they are a huge threat. But what we are saying is that refugee status is not a permanent status. We want these people to go back to their country. But what we are saying is that whatever action we do should not be counterproductive for this country. And I want to ask you one day, 600,000 people, you want to move them. There is no engagement with the government of Somalia. There is no engagement with the international humanitarian agencies currently here. There has not been any consultation with the international donor community. Suddenly it has become an issue. We are really worried about this issue, because we feel that this can have serious repercussion to the security.
You've said, just going by your words, that refugee status is not a permanent status. And of course as well, refugee camps are not permanent settlements. We've been hosting refugees for 25 years. Don't you think it's time we let them go?
Yes, I have no problem with that. I think that the problem is what we are saying really is that we want them to go. Where do you want them to go to? Who is going to receive on the other side?
So what would you have the government do quickly?
What we are saying is that let us review the tripartite agreement. Let us call the United Nations High Commission for Refugees and other partners, the government of Somalia, and we give a timeline which should be, say, 2 years or 4 years or 6 years, so that we give that timeline knowing, because currently, with the action of the government, even the repatriation which has been ongoing has stopped. The few people who are going back, over 13,000 people, have gone back to Somalia. For the last 2 weeks, that issue has now stopped. And I think that we need to really revise the tripartite agreement so that we can fast track and see how we can also collaborate with the government of Somalia and the international community, because the refugees currently have got some basic services. We need to see how we can support the government of Somalia to have schools, water, facilities, so that the refugees, when they go back, they can have somewhere they can take their children to school, health services, and so on.
Right.
Currently, there's no such kind of arrangement.
All right. Thank you very much for coming in. That is Member of Parliament for Dadaab, Dahir Duale, just giving us his sentiments on the closure of refugee camps. Of course, saying what most of the local leaders from the North Rift Valley have said. And most of them say really they have reservations on why they think the refugee camps should not be closed down. And as Duale here says, it might bring room or to more cases of terror attacks in the country, if I could call it the same. Thank you very much for coming in. But moving on, in the Bible, Jacob served for 7 years to get a wife, similar to Isaac Kinyari, who had to wait for 7 years for his freedom after being convicted of robbery with violence. Isaac, who served his sentence at the Naivasha Maximum Prison and the Nakuru GK Prison, eventually graduated with a higher diploma in theology and divine studies. And as our reporter Victor Ogale reports, Isaac is now a free man on a mission to convert souls with an intention to begin outreach programs in prisons. Take a look. We'll be bringing you that story in a bit, but let's get to something else. Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i is back at it again. I'm talking of impromptu school visits this time. It was the turn of Kitui Boys High School to feel the hit. The school, a national school, was found with no teachers during the first lesson of the day yesterday. The school also lacks sufficient textbooks for students. Dr. Matiang'i entered the school a few minutes after 8 a.m. and found students in one of from two streams without the Kiswahili teacher. Students in a stream in Form 1 were also without a teacher of biology and were learning on their own.
These children are in cars this morning. This is the first lesson, isn't it? Yes. It's the first lesson. Mwalimu. Yes. See, ni lesson ya kwanza. The first lesson of the day. There is no teacher. They have no books. How are we preparing them now for exams? Tunajipanga namna gani?
Like what is there in that?
And then I'm asking, I asked you, my brother, we are one, Ndugu. We're building our country. These are our children. I ask you, you tell me yourself, you can see clearly there's a problem, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so, okay, if I didn't come here, if nobody comes here and we don't address these issues, so how do we go on? I mean, how can we go on like this as if everything is okay? These children, the parents are at home. These children are supposed to be learning, isn't it?
Yes.
And who is teaching them? Learning what now? Their teacher, biology teacher is not there. That one, the Kiswahili teacher is not there. Huh? And if this school will have that kind of problem, what about sub-county schools?
For another round, rivaling camps at the Mombasa County Assembly failed to find a truce after a motion to impeach embattled Speaker Thaddeus Rajwai. The stalemate persisted for the third day, even as a section of the ward representatives moved to eject some chairpersons of powerful committees in the House. Mombasa County Senator Hassan Omar has condemned yesterday's chaos, blaming the ugly event to deeply ingrained and unresolved differences and impunity propagated by some quarters in the Assembly.
Whatever the states of disagreement, whatever the state of political competition, it cannot degenerate outside the frameworks provided for by the standing orders and the framework of law. I think these matters or these frameworks were provided so that people can be able, in a democratic architecture, to resolve their matters or their disagreements amicably. So therefore, whatever the degeneration is a sad chapter for Mombasa County.
Okay, that of course was Mombasa County Senator Hassan Omar. Now the health department at the Mombasa County government has lifted the ban on 2 water companies closed in the wake of hepatitis A outbreak in the coastal city. County executive in charge of health Abdi Mohammed said the Kenya Bureau of Standards and independent body conducted analysis into water samples of the 2 companies, giving them a clean bill of health. Starop and WADA, based in Nairobi and Mombasa, respectively, will now commence operations immediately.
Startup and Warda. These waters are now safe after investigations and they are safe for now consumption.
Biashara yetu ilikuwa imeenda chini na tunashukuru Mungu kuanzia sasa tutaenda mbele.
Our water had no problem at all. Then it happened to drag it until today. But anyway, we thank Allah.
Let's now head over to neighboring Uganda, where President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda took oath of office for the 5th time yesterday. But it was not the occasion that was so peculiar, but rather the sentiments he expressed to the whole world against the International Criminal Court. Museveni called the ICC court a bunch of fools while dismissing the activities in the continent. Take a look.
We lost interest in the ICC. ICC is none of our business. It is a useless body. We had supported the ICC initially, thinking they were serious, but they are just a bunch of useless people.
The U.S. Secret Service is investigating presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump's former butler over a Facebook post calling for President Barack Obama's assassination. The former butler, Anthony Senecal, who is 74, said in a Facebook post that Obama should be hanged for treason. He made the statement in 2015, and the magazine Mother Jones wrote yesterday about the post and other similar remarks by Senecal. Senecal worked for decades as a butler at Trump's Palm Beach mansion in Malago.
There he is. There he is. There he is. There he is.
Liberation, down, down with deportation. Up with liberation, down, down with deportation. There it is.
Well, that's all we had lined up for you on KTN Newsdesk. Many thanks for joining us. Up next is KTN News Truck, where we take a look at the top stories of the hour. My name is Akisa Wandera. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and keep it KTN News.